morning. Hello. Good morning, everyone. Just we are waiting a couple speakers who are stuck in traffic. So while those speakers arrive, we just invite you to have some tea and coffee, which is to the rear of the room, if you need to. So we're just waiting for those people to turn up, because if we start, we're going to have to stop to bring them in and so on. So we're just waiting for them to come out of this traffic. So hopefully in 5 minutes we should start. Thanks so much. All right, so as promised, the 5 minutes, the feature speakers arrived. So return from your coffee break and have your seats. We're going to do a safety briefing first. So let's just get ourselves together. Thank you. I guess sit with the, yeah.
Cell phone.
Right.
Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Trinidad and Tobago Chamber of Industry and Commerce. I am here to provide you with our safety briefing. Please note that there are no planned emergency drills here today. If you do hear the fire alarm, you are to proceed to the exits nearest to you. These are located on the eastern and western sides of the room. You are asked to evacuate the building in a quick and orderly fashion. Do not use the elevator. The stairs are located on the eastern and western sides of the building. Our muster assembly point is located northeast of the chamber building, that is, outside of the fence surrounding Westmore's car park area. A roll call will be taken at that point. Please note that chamber staff will be present to assist you through the evacuation process. Finally, as a matter of courtesy, we ask that your cellular phones be switched to either vibrate or silent mode. Bathrooms are on the eastern sides of the floor, down the corridor to your left and right. Quick announcement. There are power banks located under your table for you to plug in your devices. Also, you can connect to the open Wi-Fi TSTTB mobile. No password is required. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can we all now stand for the national anthem? Thank you very much. You can be seated. Before we start, just a reminder to place your cell phones, mobile devices on silent, preferably not vibrate, silent. And if you're taking calls, kindly, step out of the room if possible. All right, so welcome to the 2018 Trinidad and Tobago Internet Governance Forum. My name is Tracy Hackshaw. I am a director of the Trinidad and Tobago Multistakeholder Advisory Group, also the chair of the Internet Society Trinidad and Tobago chapter. And I want to welcome all of you all this morning to our second annual IGF, our national IGF. For those who don't know what an IGF is, it's a forum where we all can speak openly and freely about issues related to the internet and ICT. And we ask that you fully participate today. Even though there are workshops and panelists and so on, the idea is that you are part of the discussion. It's not a talk to, it's a talk with. And we want to ensure that you're fully participating. You'll see mics around the room. There'll be mics, runners with mics and so on. Please feel free to use those mics to interact and engage throughout the day. So we're already late, so I don't want to get too caught up in anything else beyond this. So I'm going to first welcome our guests from other countries. I do know I'm seeing in the room we have Secretary General Shola Taylor from the Commonwealth Telecoms Organization. Shola is from Nigeria and is based in the UK. Welcome, Shola. I'm seeing, well, not a foreigner, but I'm certainly seeing another Secretary General. It's Bernadette Lewis from the Caribbean Telecommunications Union, who's based in Port of Spain, Trinidad, but a regional ambassador for ICT and telecommunications. Okay. I also like to recognize Mr. Glenn McKnight, who is a director of the Internet Society on the board of directors. I'm seeing Cleveland Thomas, who is the regional representative for the International Telecommunications Union, United Nations organization, Cleveland. Cleveland's not a foreigner. Cleveland's from Trinidad, but he's living in Barbados, so I don't know if that's foreign yet. I'm seeing, who else I'm seeing? I'm seeing Albert Daniels, yes, from the, ICANN. I'll wait out too long. So Albert is the Caribbean representative, Caribbean regional manager for ICANN. I'm also seeing Shernan Osepa, who is the regional Caribbean bureau head for Internet Society. Have I missed anyone? Foreigners, visitors, dignitaries? If I have, I'm sorry, but welcome. And we're going to go now to one of our directors of the Trinidad and Tobago Multistakeholder Advisory Group, who is the chair, Mr. Devanand Tilak Singh, to bring welcome remarks. Dev?
Good morning, and thanks, Tracy, for that. And thank you for saying a few things already so we can make out my presentation or my welcome address shorter. So a very good morning to you all. It's my honor to welcome you all, those in this room and online, to the second annual Trinidad and Tobago Internet Governance Forum, or TTIGF for short. The purpose of this Trinidad and Tobago IGF is to maximize the opportunity for open, inclusive multi-stakeholder dialogue and exchange of ideas on internet governance-related issues from a general perspective, to create opportunities to share best practices and experiences, to identify emerging issues and bring them to the attention to the relevant bodies and the general public, and to contribute to capacity building for internet governance. So in keeping with this global IGF theme, which was to shape your digital future, today's IGF will include panel sessions with local and overseas panelists on 3 locally relevant internet governance issues: digital financial services, gender activism online, and blockchain. However, there will be an open forum session where all of you, and again, in the room here and online, can share your comments and questions and concerns on internet governance issues that's important to you. The Trinidad and Tobago IGF is hosted by the Trinidad and Tobago Multi-Stakeholder Advisory Group, or TTMAG for short. The TTMAG's mission is to be an independent entity for the promotion and development for the .tt country code top-level domain, and for the local internet ecosystem in the interest of the internet community, and with broadly 4 objectives: to serve the needs of any specific cohesive community of interest and the local internet community in the context of internet evolution, particularly education, internet standards, public policies, and regarding internet content and services, as well as contributing to internet governance; to promote activities consistent with the .tt country code top-level domain and purposes in Trinidad and Tobago; to increase awareness and participation with our stakeholders; and to provide representation of the local internet community at events regionally and internationally. To that end, the MAG has participated and contributed to various internet governance fora in 2017. We hosted the first Trinidad and Tobago IGF in January last year, and participated in the Barbados IGF in June, as well as the Latin American and Caribbean IGF in Panama in August, as well as the Caribbean Internet Governance Forum in August as well, in the British Virgin Islands, I believe it was. We also participated in the Global IGF in Switzerland last month. TTMAG members have also participated actively in ICANN's multi-stakeholder communities and ICANN meetings throughout 2017. The TTMAG has also participated in ICT events such as the ITU TAT event, Internet of Things event in April. Furthermore, the MAG has submitted comments on this country's draft National ICT Plan, aka Fast Forward 2, and we have developed and approved a charitable organizations policy, which allows legitimately registered charities and organizations in Trinidad and Tobago to have a free domain under charity.tt. So as the TTMAG enters its second year, having launched at the same day as the first IGF on January 26, 2017, the volunteer members of the MAG have worked to enable more stakeholders to become members of TTMAG, to participate in the TTMAG's purpose and objectives, to serve our ever-growing, diverse internet stakeholder community. To that end, the TTMAG welcomes applications from organizations in the following stakeholder groups: academia, civil society, commercial/business, government, technical community, and /ICT civil society. You're invited to visit the TTMAG's website at mag.tt/join to learn more and to apply online. TTMAG members will be available throughout the day to answer any questions. And of course, we can be reached on the internet at info@mag.tt. So as you are aware, the TTIGF has a very packed agenda, and there's much for all of us to listen, learn, share, and discuss. So on behalf of the Trinidad and Tobago Multi-Stakeholder Advisory Group, I thank you all again for your participation today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Devanand Tilak Singh, our chair of the TTMAG. So we have a nice little surprise. We do have video greetings coming from our colleagues and overseas who wanted to share some information with us. It's not long, maybe about 5 minutes in total. So I would first ask to queue up Ms. Lynn St. Amour, who is the chair of the United Nations Internet Governance Forum, MAG, Multi-Stakeholder Advisory Group, based in Geneva. So she's sending some greetings for us. So perhaps we can have her now.
Dear Secretary General, colleagues, and friends, thank you for inviting me to make some welcoming remarks. And first, let me congratulate you on holding the second Trinidad and Tobago IGF. And thank you to the Trinidad and Tobago IGF Multi-Stakeholder Advisory Group for all your efforts. It is a lot of work and not always straightforward. I would also like to congratulate you on being the first national IGF to be held in 2018. Your theme, Shaping the Digital Future, is forward-looking and acknowledges the empowering aspects of the internet. While the internet brings many, many benefits to mankind, there remain some key challenges, such as the one to connect the roughly 50% of the world that still doesn't have access. This fact cannot be acceptable to any of us. The well-being and the welfare of these individuals can be dramatically improved with access, whether they choose to take advantage of connecting directly or they benefit indirectly. And the small island developing states have special requirements and stand to benefit significantly, so even more reason for all of us to do as much as we possibly can. The value of the IGF is as a platform for multi-stakeholder dialogue. All IGF meetings very clearly inform actions that are brought to the local and national level for implementation, whether they are taken back through private sector activity or through governments.
Okay. Have we lost the connection? So this is dead air, so let me do a song and dance in the meantime. So that was Lynn St. Amour. I'm not sure if we'll get her back. Will we get her back shortly? And in doing the welcome to us, she is bringing to bear the experience she has of running a MAG at the United Nations level and the special interest they have in national and regional IGFs. There are, I think, now 70 national regional IGFs around the world, and we are the first one for this year to have to host. So it's a very important gesture for the UN to reach out to us and bring greetings. I've been told to move on. Move on to what, though? The second one, okay. All right, so unfortunately, that one is not going to continue. I'm hoping we'll get it back at some point in the day. The second video message, which I hope will go better than the first, is from the head of the United Nations IGF Secretariat, Mr. Chengetai Masango, and he's also bringing greetings on behalf of the United Nations system, and also based in Geneva. So let's see how that goes.
Distinguished experts, dear colleagues present on site and online, thank you very much for inviting me to speak at the second annual meeting of the Trinidad and Tobago National IGF. Though I would have wished to, unfortunately, I could not be with you in person. First of all, I'd like to convey my sincere congratulations to your National Multi-Stakeholder Advisory Group for successfully running the IGF process for your community. Also, I will use this opportunity to thank you for your valuable contributions to the global IGF during the 2017 preparatory process. Through the best practice forums on gender and access, cybersecurity and local content, and developing policy options for connecting and enabling the next billions, as well as through participating in the collaborative work of all national and regional IGFs for addressing digital rights. Beyond these mentioned processes, you have enriched the overall IGF agenda by bringing important
All right. So that's not going well. Perhaps what we could do is move on straight to our in-person. I'm sorry the technology seems to be failing us, and I don't know what's going to happen next at that, but we are at an Internet Governance Forum, so we have to fix this, don't we? So let me, yes, I don't think we're getting it back. So let me do the needful and introduce our featured speaker. Mr. Shola Taylor is someone who is very close and dear to our hearts. He has been a supporter of the region and Trinidad and Tobago in particular over the last several years. I know Shola from work in the government and his efforts at the ITU. I know he also has other colleagues in the room from the ITU and others as well. And Mr. Taylor from Nigeria has risen to the ranks to become the Secretary of the Commonwealth Telecoms Organization. The Commonwealth, as you know, is made up of the English-speaking members of the former United Kingdom Empire, who are now generally mostly independent and are working together to try and build a better world. And it's about 55 countries around there. And I think that one of the things we want to do today is bring that level of understanding of what other countries are doing and how we can participate in that work and how we can work together with organizations like the CTO to see how we can improve things like the internet in our part of the world and the services that run on top of the internet. So without further ado, I'm going to ask my great friend, Mr. Shola Taylor, Secretary General of the Commonwealth Telecoms Organization, to bring some remarks first. Shola?
First of all, let me assure you, I'm not going to freeze like the videos. Secretary General Bernadette Lewis, the SG of the Caribbean Telecommunications Union, and a great friend. My great friend and pastor friend, Cleveland Thomas, the ITU ambassador to the Caribbean region. I call him my spiritual friend because he's a pastor. Shannon Osepa, Manager, Regional Affairs, Latin America and Caribbean Bureau for ISOC. Glenn McKnight, member of the Board of Directors of ISOC. Albert Daniels, also one of my friends from ICANN. And I cannot but also recognize the chairperson, Dev Anand, and of course, Tracy. Let me, at the outset, express my profound appreciation to the organizers of this second Trinidad and Tobago Internet Governance Forum, taking place here today, for having invited me to deliver the keynote address for this important gathering. When Tracy Hackshaw cornered me in Geneva last month to deliver this speech, I did not hesitate to signify my acceptance for a number of reasons. Firstly, I have been very encouraged, not only by the steps which the stakeholders of this country have taken in their effective participation at the international community on matters dealing with the growth of the internet for development, but also actions being taken by the governments, by successive government of this country, to improve the development of ICT in Trinidad. Secondly, I acknowledge that in spite of the work done here, much work needs to be done, and I felt it was imperative for me to share my thoughts as input to the process of ICT development in this country. Thirdly, Trinidad and Tobago is one of the very active members of the Commonwealth Telecommunications Organization, the CTO, and very supportive of the CTO's strategic plan, which has 6 main pillars, namely the enhancement of membership to the CTO, promoting good regulatory environments, ensuring that countries of the region of the Commonwealth have cybersecurity frameworks which addresses all the challenges we have today, universal access to all the peoples of the Commonwealth, about 2.2 billion, 60% of which are youths, ICT applications for the growth of our economies, and having Commonwealth coordination at international fora. Trinidad and Tobago currently occupies the position of chair of the CTO, and is represented by Gilbert Patterson, who also doubles as the chairperson of TAT, and I'm sure you're all familiar with TAT. Finally, one of the reasons why I'm here is that I don't think any CTO staff based in the UK will hesitate to come here on mission when that opportunity arises. So for us at the CTO, Trinidad is one of the places, like no other place, where work and fun comes naturally together. Between enjoying the nightlife in Area Peter Avenue, spending the afternoon on a sunny day in Maracas Bay, visiting plantations further up inland after usually long days of work, there's enough in Port of Spain and beyond to appeal to anyone's taste. So it's good to be here, particularly at the beginning of the Caribbean Carnival. And when I was coming, I did tell my family I was going to come to Trinidad, and I said it's the beginning of Carnival, so there was a little fight. My daughter wanted to come with me, my son wanted to come with me, and my wife kept quiet. I said, who do you prefer, me or your children? I said, it's you. That's why she's here. Thank you. The theme chosen for this forum, Shaping Your Agenda, Shaping Your Digital Future, is timely and is of paramount importance not only to Trinidad and Tobago and the Caribbean, but also the Commonwealth. My keynote address will focus on just 5 areas. 1, just to talk about the theme. Secondly, to talk about the role of the Commonwealth in ICT. 3, to look at the status of ICT in Trinidad. 4thly, to look at the main issues which we have gathered here to discuss, and to then highlight some of the prerequisites need to be undertaken to ensure that we get to the promised land. As you're all aware, the Commonwealth countries present a unique set of the world's countries, including rich and poor countries, large and small. The tremendous strength that we have over 100 years of existence, we're about 117 years old this year. Significantly, unlike regional organizations, our membership includes countries from every continent of the world, whether in Africa, in Europe, in the Caribbean, in Asia, and the Pacific. Gaining consensus on key issues relating to ICTs and telecommunications among Commonwealth countries can therefore play a critically important role in fostering wider international engagements. 3 years ago, the CTO convened the Commonwealth ICT Ministers meeting in London, and that was their first biennial meeting, and this cuts across all the Commonwealth countries. At that meeting, the ministers took a number of important decisions, including the adoption of the Commonwealth Cyber Governance Model, a document that maps out the 4 key principles that guide how we relate to cyberspace as nations. These 4 principles are based on the values and aspirations enshrined in the Commonwealth Charter, the founding document of the Commonwealth. These are as follows. 1, we contribute to a safe and an effective global cyberspace. 2, our actions in cyberspace support broader economic and social development. 3, we act individually and collectively to tackle cybercrime. And 4, we each exercise our rights and meet our responsibilities in cyberspace. So the CTO identifies very easily with the very distinct but particularly important issues that this forum will address today. Let's just take a look at briefly the situation that we have in this country. The ICT challenges which have been outlined within the Trinidad and Tobago's National ICT Plan for 2017 to 2021 includes 3 or 4 issues. 1, skills. Although ICT penetration remains high, particularly among citizens and governments, Trinidad and Tobago lags behind advanced nations in the productive and innovative use of the ICTs. Uptake. There currently exists limited awareness of e-services and the benefits of using these services. Furthermore, users have a poor perception of e-services, which negatively impact engagement with such services. Environment. Trinidad and Tobago lacks the robust legal and regulatory framework required for e-business, e-commerce, and e-services, as the Electronic Transactions Act and the Data Protection Act have only been partially proclaimed, and key regulations under those acts have not been passed. This is a call for action. There's a need, therefore, to enhance collaboration to plan, design, procure, and share common ICT applications to reduce cost, to create standardization across governments, and further enable efficiency gains through ICTs. Advancing environmental and societal benefits is also a key point. Now, we have at the CTO been involved in collaborating with the Caribbean countries. Just 2 months ago, here in November, with funding from the UK Foreign and Commonwealth Office, we conducted an important cyber standards workshop where we invited about 40 small and medium enterprises to come and learn about how we can apply cyber standards to those small countries, to those small entities. And the reason is that a lot of these small entities which actually provide majority or the most part of the GDP in this country cannot afford to follow the international standards 27,000. And therefore, we felt there was a need to enable them to adopt standards which can easily be applied to their systems. During that period, we also organized what we call the Human Resource and ICT Forum, here also in Port of Spain. And we did examine the unique human resource needs of the ICT sector to imagine challenges and potential resolutions, as well as the role of ICTs in human resource management. Let me take this opportunity to thank the CTU for collaborating with us at that event, and Nigel, my friend, who was a speaker during that particular event. During that period also, we conducted a widely publicized consultation on what we call over-the-top services, services such as WhatsApp, Viber, Facebook, because they transformed the way we use the internet, and partly because our ministers gave us a mandate to carry out this study. And I'm pleased to inform you that in June, 18th June 2018, we shall be publishing this report, which our ministers will be adopting in June when they meet in the UK. Now, if we take the 3 main issues which I've seen on the program, one is digital financial services, second is blockchain, and the third is online gender activism. Let me just address these 3 issues very briefly. Financial inclusion, and particularly the historic challenge of the limited access to banking and financial services, has been a significant obstacle to economic development globally. Over the past decade or so, we have seen emerging bottom-up applications in areas such as remittances and other microfinance services. Prior to that, virtual banking began to emerge, thanks largely also to digital technology, innovations, and the internet. Addressing issues around the unbanked access to lending as well as investment, and the emerging market forces around financial services, including the emerging role of telecom operators and fintech innovation. Force us into conversations of the kind we have in this forum, and we hope that will facilitate better understanding. So I look forward to the discussion on digital financial services later on. Beyond digital financial services, we're also increasingly dependent on other forms of digitalized records and access, as well as assets, thanks to the use and the rise of blockchain technology. Whether we like it or not, securing land registration using blockchain technology, as it is now done in many countries like Georgia, or using smart contracts, or dealing with the regulatory needs around cryptocurrencies, all bring challenges we need to address as comprehensively as possible. Now, in terms of blockchain technology, it has the potential to empower users, make transactions faster and cheaper, and have data which is complete, consistent, and accurate. There are, however, challenges relating to technology in terms of regulation, and this is just one area where technology develops at a pace where policymakers cannot keep up. And yes, for all the social and economic challenges the internet brings us, it also brings with it many opportunities beyond the obvious technological applications that are now possible. One such opportunity is a new voice it gives to the promotion of human rights, and particularly to gender activism online. Thanks to the internet, many countries and communities are beginning to overcome deep-rooted taboos. Take the obvious issue of violence or harassment against women, which have been widely publicized in news media, not fake news. We begin to see more action by governments and legislators around the world, and the women communities who want to fight and make sure the environment is safe for all. While the CTO has done a lot of work, I must confess that we have not been active on gender activism. And therefore, I look forward to learning from your discussion on this issue, which is very important. Having said this, let me just confirm that the journey to the digital future is not only individual, but it has to be collective. Coordinated, multi-sectoral strategies are required by countries, which must consider a range of issues and factors, including investment and privacy. Next month, in Gibraltar, the city will be organizing the first data forum, which will address significantly the issues around privacy, data protection, and we do invite you to participate at that particular event. Finally, let me now highlight a few issues which are central to address the issues before us today. One is the new technologies and the need for policy and regulatory action. New technologies play a fundamental role in all aspects of our daily lives, from education to transport and healthcare. ICTs also have a role to play in promoting gender equality through enabling political participation, in reducing energy consumption, and contributing to the efforts to tackle climate change, in increasing food production by encouraging farmers to use ICTs, and other areas such as disaster risk reduction through early warning and strengthening connectivity. Technology cannot be developed in isolation from policymakers and regulations. And therefore, it's also important that policy and regulators are fully aware of technological trends and then map out options to enable these technologies to grow. Policymakers and regulators cannot sit idle whilst these new technologies provide various challenges to us. How do we address the issue of OTTs, for example? Should they be regulated? And if so, should it be light regulation, and what type of light regulation? Modernize policies and regulations that protect the interests of the end users and investors, and also attract investments and support the ease of doing business are important prerequisites for creating a vibrant ICT industry in Trinidad. Competitive digital economies require government to create the enabling conditions, the laws and frameworks, including for machine-to-machine communications. Secondly, cyberspace. In recognition that cyberspace has opened new dimensions in entrepreneurship and innovation, and facilitated interactions between peoples, and that cybersecurity can contribute to economic prosperity. The CTO Council last September in Maputo adopted a resolution which encourages the heads of states of the Commonwealth meeting in April 2018 to ensure that they have cybersecurity as one of their top agenda items. And I really want to thank Bernadette Lewis, who went to the Bahamas and assisted us to put this on the agenda of the Caribbean ICT ministers, and I understand they all supported that resolution. So we hope that the government here will participate actively on the road to the CHOGM in April in the UK, and we hope that they will play a leading role, at least among the Caribbean countries, at that particular event. What we want to achieve with the heads of states is to ensure that the Commonwealth ICT heads make sure that they place cybersecurity on top of their agenda. Thirdly, development of ICT skills. I really, every time I come to Trinidad and Tobago, particularly in the Caribbean, I always congratulate the women in this region, because from all statistics, they've done better than the men, as at yesterday. And I hope the men will catch up one day. Congratulations to the women of the Caribbean for the good things you're doing. ICT skills are now necessary for almost all forms of employment. Therefore, there's a need to prioritize ICT capacity building and enable creativity, particularly amongst youths. Youths have a particular interest and ability with regard to modern technology, and this should be leveraged as much as possible, particularly as a means to achieving the goals of the Sustainable Development Agenda. Fourthly, ICT applications. One example of the positive impact of technology on sustainable development is in the agricultural sector. In recent years, there has been increasing penetration by mobile phones in value chain segments, which are being adopted by farmers and other stakeholders. The use of drones in agriculture is also being embraced. Entrepreneurship in the sector using technologies is also an emerging trend. Initiatives such as this can be useful for this country to boost its agricultural sector by enabling increased productivity, profitability, and employment opportunities. Finally, stakeholder participation. We can't emphasize the importance of ensuring that everyone in this country is part of the discussion in ensuring that ICT development is on the high priority for Trinidad and Tobago. Citizen inclusion is vital to e-government frameworks. There's a need for accessibility, accountability, and trust between users and government services. The multi-stakeholder platform, which is offered by the IGF, as well as other organizations such as ICANN, with whom we collaborate a lot, are great mechanisms for promoting communication and collaboration amongst various stakeholder groups. It's therefore important that developing countries such as Trinidad and Tobago continues to participate in these global platforms to ensure that there is a contribution to global policy development as this impacts upon national policies. I say that in the last 3 ICANN and GAC meetings that I've attended, I must commend Trinidad and Tobago for having a relatively large, multidimensional, multicultural delegation, and they're all excited all the time. And last time I felt I should socialize with them, and that resulted in me coming here. So I really thank Tracy and your team, very wonderful team. Finally, let me thank you for having allowed me to share these thoughts, and I will assure you that the CTO will continue to support the efforts of Trinidad and Tobago in all its efforts to build ICT development in this country. We will also continue to collaborate with our partners, the ITU, the CTU in particular, being the main organization that's responsible for development of ICT in this region, as well as CARICOM and other organizations. I wish that I've been able to provide you with thoughts, and I really want to thank you for listening to me. I traveled here, it's about 11 hours, and I thank you for listening to me because I need to justify why I came here, spending 11 hours. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Shola, and I think you can be rewarded by a few after 5 p.m. activities that might be on offer this weekend, including Sunday at the Savannah, where there's right. So thanks for a very enlightening discussion, spreading the message about the way to work together and I guess the areas that we need to look at in the region and in Trinidad and Tobago and developing our sector. So before we move on, I think we have rectified the video issue. And I'm going to bear with me for, I guess, a couple of minutes to get this done, because the colleagues who put this together went through some effort to do it. And I will hate to think that this issue would affect them bringing their message to us. So without further ado, I'm going to ask the team to just run the messages together. And the last one actually is a generic one. That's only 45 seconds. But the first two are personalized for this meeting. So go ahead. Thank you.
Dear Secretary General, colleagues, and friends, thank you for inviting me to make some welcoming remarks. And first, let me congratulate you on holding the second Trinidad and Tobago IGF. And thank you to the Trinidad and Tobago IGF Multi-Stakeholder Advisory Group for all your efforts. It is a lot of work and not always straightforward. I would also like to congratulate you on being the first national IGF to be held in 2018. Your theme, Shaping the Digital Future, is forward-looking and acknowledges the empowering aspects of the Internet. While the Internet brings many, many benefits to mankind, there remain some key challenges, such as the one to connect the roughly 50% of the world that still doesn't have access. This fact cannot be acceptable to any of us. The well-being and the welfare of these individuals can be dramatically improved with access, whether they choose to take advantage of connecting directly or they benefit indirectly. And the small island developing states have special requirements and stand to benefit significantly. So even more reason for all of us to do as much as we possibly can. The value of the IGF is as a platform for multi-stakeholder dialogue. All IGF meetings very clearly inform actions that are brought to the local and national level for implementation. Whether they are taken back through private sector activity or through government, civil society, academic, or technical activities, or through some of the IGF intersessional activities, there is clear action being driven from the annual IGF and from the National, Regional, and Youth IGF initiatives, or NRIs. NRIs are central to advancing Internet policy and development issues locally and also globally. Your efforts and your contributions inform the global meeting and global activities, while also informing other NRIs. Your contributions are extremely informative and useful to the IGF and to the IGF intersessional activities. And the MAG looks forward to your contributions continuing in the years to come. Turning to the United Nations 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, the Sustainable Development Goals depend heavily on Internet and ICTs. It is therefore important to recognize the importance of discussing new technologies and their applications for the benefit of society. This was obviously recognized by the Trinidad and Tobago IGF community, given the program has discussions on blockchain technologies as well as digital financial services. In addition, your discussions on gender and gender online issues are very important, and we look forward to including the outputs from your sessions into the work the IGF has been pursuing through a dedicated best practice forum for the last few years. All of these areas are essential to social and economic progress. Finally, thank you to the Trinidad and Tobago IGF for all your contributions to the 2017 IGF preparatory work, particularly your contributions to the best practice forums in cybersecurity, local content, and gender and access, as well as to our major policy initiative, Connecting and Enabling the Next Billions, which is now in its third year. Along with more than 97 NRIs, you contributed to preparations for the main session on digital rights and helped advance the global IGF process through your participation. Your contributions were valuable and much appreciated, and we look forward to working with you on the IGF 2018 preparatory work as well. Your efforts helped to increase the participation of individuals from developing countries, and this remains a key goal for the IGF community. Thank you to Tracy Hacksaw and the Trinidad and Tobago Multi-Stakeholder Advisory Group for inviting me to make these remarks, and I wish you all a very successful and fruitful meeting. I look forward to seeing many of you at future IGF or internet meetings, and if there are any questions or additional information I or the IGF Secretariat can provide, please do not hesitate to reach out. Thank you.
Distinguished experts, dear colleagues present on-site and online, thank you very much for inviting me to speak at the second annual meeting of the Trinidad and Tobago National IGF. Though I would have wished to, unfortunately, I could not be with you in person. First of all, I'd like to convey my sincere congratulations to your National Multi-Stakeholder Advisory Group for successfully running the IGF process for your community. Also, I will use this opportunity to thank you for your valuable contributions to the global IGF during the 2017 preparatory process. Through the best practice forums on gender and access, cybersecurity and local content, and developing policy options for connecting and enabling the next billions, as well as through participating in the collaborative work of all national and regional IGFs for addressing digital rights. Beyond these mentioned processes, you have enriched the overall IGF agenda by bringing important perspectives and new ideas. Some of you joined us in Geneva last year at the 12th annual IGF meeting, either on-site or online, to participate in some of the 200 sessions. Many of these sessions elaborated how the internet and online-based technologies can be powerful tools for improving the lives of people, if properly deployed. Proper deployment depends on the human factor. It depends on experts and communities understanding and trusting the internet and adjusting it to their needs. For this to be achieved, it is important to have a good framework in which the issues and solutions can be discussed amongst all stakeholders on an equal footing. This is precisely what the IGF is about, allowing communities to discuss matters of relevance in a multi-stakeholder, bottom-up, open, and inclusive process. The communities allow for problems to be identified, solutions to be suggested, and allows those that make the final decisions to be properly informed. I am pleased to see that the Trinidad and Tobago IGF community will address some of the most important internet-related topics currently, such as blockchain technologies, gender online, and digital financial services. These matters are important not just for advancing the internet, but also for the sustainable development of society. This is why we look forward to learning more from you today, as the final discussion outcomes will be important inputs to the IGF, but also to the United Nations 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, since many of the Sustainable Development Goals depend on ICTs. I wish you an excellent meeting and look forward to continuing the good mutual collaboration that exists between the IGF's Secretariat and the Trinidad and Tobago IGF. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Marcus Kummer. I'm the chairman of the IGF Support Association. It gives me great pleasure to convey the best wishes of the IGF Support Association, or IGFSA as it's known by its acronym, to your meeting. The IGFSA is here to support the IGF, the global IGF, but also all the national and regional IGFs, the growing network of NRIs as they are known. We think this is important.
And just a note on the IGFSA, they are one of our partners today, providing actual financial support. And any of you can join the IGFSA. It's igfsa.org. And they welcome anybody to join and participate in their discussions and fundraising activities and meetings that they would have accordingly. So thank you very much. And we're now going to move on to the formal part of our, well, not the formal part, our interactive part of our day, which will be the workshops. or panels. So what I would like to do at this point is move swiftly to the panel 1 and ask first the moderator, Mr. Rabindra Jagannath, a director of the Trinidad and Tobago Multistakeholder Advisory Group, to join us, as well as the following: Mr. Zaf Rahman, owner and founder for Forward Multimedia. Is Zaf here? Thank you. Ms. Glynis Alexander Tam, General Manager for Infolink Services Limited. I see Glynis here. Thank you. Mr. Alwyn Wayne, Chief Executive Officer, WePay. Mr. Wayne. Mr. Shernan Osepa, Manager Regional Affairs for Latin America and the Caribbean Bureau, Internet Society. Thank you, Shernan. And now I'll hand over to Mr. Jagannath to take you through this panel. Danny?
Good. Am I on?
Sounds.
Okay. No, I can't tell from here if I'm on, but okay, it sounds like as if I'm on now. Thank you very much, Tracy, and morning to everybody. Come, a loud morning. Morning to everybody.
Morning.
Oh, geez. After this, you'll get your mid-morning break. Shola mentioned there's enough in Port of Spain to appeal to everyone. Well, one of the things that this panel is going to do is put that to test to see if there's enough in the digital space in Port of Spain and by extension in Trinidad to appeal to everyone. So folks, welcome to the start of the interactive sessions. As Tracy mentioned, this panel is focusing on digital financial services, and you have a distinguished group here. If you want to get your details about their bios and background and so on, feel free to go online to do it because time is of the essence. I'll just quickly introduce the panel. Zaf Rahman is owner and founder of Forward Multimedia. And before that, how many of you all here are under 25 years old? Put up your hands. Fake news here. How many of you all are under 30 years old? And how many of you all are under 35 years old? Okay, how many of you all are over 40 years old? And the reason why I'm asking that is because, by and large, sessions like these are the domain of younger people.
I think so.
So you'll ask yourself, why am I actually facilitating a panel discussion geared towards the younger people? But I'll mention that I've been involved in ICT for over 35 years, and serious lobbying in various guises and forms over the years, currently with the TTIGF, to really ensure that our ICT space is really comparable to any of the first world countries and so on. Has this been a rewarding journey? Partially so. Has it been a hard journey? The answer is yes. But really it's for the younger people in the crowd to step up and make sure that whatever transpires today and so on materializes in some form or fashion, something tangible that you all can actually use. And the discussions with the panel here are going to tell you things that you can do, things that currently are possible, things that should be possible, and so on. And it is a sad indictment, rather than starting off on a negative note. But for years, Trinidad has been such a good, healthy economy and so on. And if you match that with what progress we've made in the ICT space and so on, it has been spotted. We've made some progress, and then we've dropped off and plateaued, and then we've made some further progress and so on. We need to make another leap forward. So part of the discussion with the group today is to really find out more about the digital financial services, the landscape, and really what can be done, why things can be done, and how it can be done. And just a quick definition of digital financial services: the broad range of financial services accessed and delivered through digital channels, including payments, credit, savings, remittances and insurances. The digital financial services concept includes mobile financial services. In this context, the term digital channel refers to the internet, mobile phones, ATMs, point-of-sale terminals, NFC-enabled chips, devices, electronically enabled cards, biometric devices, tablets, any other digital system. Digital financial services models usually employ agents and a network of other third-party intermediaries to provide accessibility and lower the overall service delivery cost. So let me just engage in some discussions with the panel here. And what we'll do is really have a kind of a talk show type of approach. We'll have some question and answers going here, and then we'll throw it open for the wider audience to participate, both the in-house audience here as well as the remote participants. So I mentioned to the panel, I'll give you an opportunity, no more than 2 minutes, because I'm going to have to time you out after 2 minutes. But to make a few introductory remarks, why all this interest in digital financial services, what are the benefits and so on, but a few introductory remarks. So Zaf?
Good morning, everyone. Well, thank you for having me first, and especially for this session, digital financial services. On my part mainly deals with my industry, website design and e-commerce, and I've noticed there's a lack of information, a lot of misinformation, and lack of awareness of the payment options and payment methods and payment gateways, online payment in general, and e-commerce in Trinidad and Tobago. And I've interacted with banks and payment gateway providers, businesses, all stakeholders, and I've interacted with a lot of them, and given my long experience since 2011, I've been following this topic. I've written a lot of articles, and I've gained a lot of insights and experience, and hopefully I'll be able to share this with you today. And I share it freely on my website, my blogs and articles, and I hope to share it with you freely today, and hopefully you will go back a little more educated about e-commerce in Trinidad and Tobago, which is a big, huge topic right now, and really growing. Thank you.
Glynis?
Well, welcome everyone, and thank you for having me on this session. I represent what we're known as legacy payment infrastructure. I run the Links network. I'm sure all of you are familiar with Links. We see quite a bit of transactions taking place across the network. I could tell you from what I see and from the information I get from the banks. Links see close to 48 million transactions every year and growing. We have a network that consists of 500 ATMs, almost 20,000 point-of-sale machines in Trinidad and Tobago, and roughly 8,000 to 9,000 merchants, depending on the season. Christmas and Carnival, where you see a lot of people come on temporary in terms of doing point of sale. And in there, of course, there is, in fact, credit cards. Trinidad has roughly 200,000 credit cards within the country. It's not a one-to-one ratio by any means. Some people have 2 and 3 credit cards. The reality is we need, in this country, for a lot more electronic and digital transactions to take place within the financial services industry. A study by MasterCard in 2016 showed that if we grow our electronic transactions by 30%, our GDP will increase by 3.5 to 4%. We have a lot of work to do. There's room for the legacy infrastructure, and there's room for new players. And this is a time, and I think in times of challenges and difficulty, as we are experiencing now, it is time for entrepreneurs and those persons who are engaged in the e-space, the e-commerce space, to really put their foot forward and contribute to the development. There's room for all. And I think the society is waiting for that. We are a well-educated, well-traveled society. We're seeing all what's happening out there, and there's a pent-up demand for more in terms of electronic transaction to take place within Trinidad and Tobago.
Good, and we'll talk some more specifics about those during the panel discussion. Shannon?
Yes, first of all, it's a pleasure and honor to be here. For us at the Internet Society, it's not just about to participate at an event, it's more about to give a contribution to development of the internet. And this is basically what we are doing. If you look at normally at the topics that we discuss within internet governance, we are looking at, let's say, infrastructure development, we are looking at legal aspects. We are talking about development, we are talking about security, economic, social, cultural, and human rights. But it's very important that we focus on the economic part and also development. And that is why this particular topic, digital financial services, is very important, because we can use it to continue, let's say, promote and develop a particular country. So in that regard, I would like to focus later on a bit more from the economic and development perspective, why internet society does care when it comes to these kind of topics. Thanks.
And Alwyn?
All right, well, I'm from WePay, and to touch on Zaf and Glennis and Mr. Shan, see your name there. We basically took everything that they were talking about and tried to bring it to reality. So WePay is an online payment platform, which does credit card processing. So Zaf can now have all his websites become e-commerce websites with a plugin. We've worked with Zaf very closely to help bring e-commerce websites into the space without the need for all the red tape that is currently, well, previously required. So simple like PayPal, you just download a plugin, and Zaf could now start accepting payments online. In terms of the traditional electronic payments, links and so forth, we see the need for transitioning bank payments online, and we're currently working with a couple banks to do stuff just like what you're requesting or recommend we should do. This all could culminate into what Shannon was talking about in terms of
getting around it. Now the next play really is selling online, and that's where we are right now.
And from the perspective of selling online and so on, and now that virtually all of the banks have their electronic payment facility and so on, do you see that there's a greater uptake by the entrepreneurs and so on to really create e-commerce websites and look to sell their products and services online?
Well, the problem really was that there was no real information out there. People just didn't know how to get online, how to sell online, what platforms to use, what payment methods were available. The first thing that comes to mind for everyone is PayPal. And in 2017, actually, visits to my website via the search query of PayPal and all iterations was the #1 landing point to my website. Everyone wants to know about PayPal, which means they want to know about payment systems. That's only when they're on my site then they realize, well, we have payment options like First Atlantic Commerce. And even in my articles, I had predicted more or less that eventually an aggregator like PayPal would come, and eventually, well, Alwyn did come with WePay to bring a more user-friendly and easy and affordable payment option that small and medium-sized businesses could use that don't need a merchant account at a bank and the lengthy red tape and the expensive cost to integrate that could use a lower tier platform like WordPress, and smaller businesses could get online. I mean, really, literally, as long as when they move fast enough, literally, they should be able to get online probably within the same evening if they wanted to, as opposed to getting, as opposed to applying for merchant accounts at the bank, getting approved, getting merchant IDs, getting integrated, getting reviewed and tested and online. So we have a lot more interest now.
Sure, and Glynis, from your perspective, what do you see as some of the benefits in your corporate position? You interface a lot with the various banks and so on.
Well, the key thing is cash. You want to get cash out of the system because cash is very expensive to maintain. People don't realize that carrying cash, there's a huge cost to having cash on your premises. At the macro level, there's a cost to print, there's a cost to store. From a business level, there's a cost to secure. And in these times, I do not understand why people want to keep so much cash on their premises. When you see these headlines, robberies at people's homes or in supermarkets, etc., and you hear bandits leaving off with $100,000 in cash, you ask yourself why, right? But the reality is security is very expensive. It's extremely expensive in these days for armed security to protect your cash. So we need, in order to become more efficient and effective as businesses, both medium and small businesses, we need to encourage the electronic transactions. And we're seeing it more and more. Recently, we saw the ad by RBC where they're talking about they're transforming into a digital bank. And it's for those reasons, that the cost of carrying cash is really expensive. And you need more to encourage, to change the behavior of the population to engage in the electronic transactions, right? Because it's extremely efficient to do that. And as I said in my opening, when you increase the amount of electronic transactions within a country, it impacts on the macro level. So not only from a corporate point of view, but from a macroeconomic point of view, you want more electronic services, more electronic transaction. When I talk, people think, oh, that links, the competition is credit card. My competition on credit card, my competition is cash. Pure and simple cash, right? You want to convert that cash into transaction. And it's difficult because, yes, you have the infrastructure element, the higher level infrastructure element, such as the e-commerce gateways, etc., which are still a little pricey because at the end of the day, it's about mass. It's about mass transactions. When an entrepreneur invests in a platform that is $1,800 US, how much you have to sell to offset that $1,800 US? It's a lot, right? So it's about mass. So we have to find a way to do that even cheaper as well. And it's about collaboration and the likes of WePay and more like WePay to offer more of those services so that the cost is shared, because that's the only way it'll get cheaper. The cost has to be shared, all right? So I look forward to more of the entrepreneurial spirit entering within the financial services, because I keep telling, there is a pent-up demand. The amount of people knock on Link's door in a month wanting to know if they could hook up or hook in, it's amazing. And that, for me, tells me the pent-up demand for services, that people are thinking about it and want to engage in it.
Okay, and I can use a fairly recent example about this cash situation. I was horrified earlier this week. My wife had to buy a taillight to replace one that I actually damaged on her car. So yes, the motor vehicle company had in stock, yes, and of course my wife sent a messenger to purchase it with a check, and they told her they're not accepting checks, they're only accepting cash. Well, when I heard that, I was horrified. In today's world, something as fundamental as that, you're accepting cash, and it wasn't a small amount of cash that we was going to be working with. Before I go to Shernan, Alwyn, from a perspective of benefits, yes, you've been doing a lot in this space and so on, but there must be a motivating factor, a reason why you want to do more. It's not just all, I need to make more money for myself and so on, but this is something that is broader than that.
Much broader. So when I graduated, so I went to school outside, I was exposed to a lot of the first world type payment systems, you know what I mean? And I try to figure out every time I come back home, why are we not doing something similar? Same type of people, same need for the services, why we not, just not jumping in? As Glenn said, why people still think they need to carry cash in their grocery store or pay with cash, and it's because of the culture here. So in the region as well, we are not the first in this space in the Caribbean. We looked at Jamaica, there's about 87 wallets trying to do the same things. Connect, I think, just folded up last month. So we learn from what the first world country is doing, and then what we expect, and try to come right in between. So since we have a cash-based culture, we did the online e-commerce part for ZAF and people who are interested in credit card payments. But then we added the second part, which is to address that cash bit. We actually allow people to digitize their cash using a familiar medium. So our culture, cash-based still. I know you said 200,000, which kind of makes it about 20%. Since you have more than one person having a credit card, it's closer to 9–10%, right? So the thing is, you're trying to market to a population that only 9% you actually could reach, or 10, let's say 50 in your case. So what about the other 85%? Cash. But we don't want them to work with cash. So what WePay did was use an existing mechanism for getting cash online or digitizing cash that we are accustomed doing, topping up your cell phone. You go and buy a phone card, you actually convert that cash into phone credit. You don't see it, but you just digitize your $20 into an online commodity that you could use, airtime. So if we just expand that just a little bit and put that credit into something usable, as in pays off on his website, well then you can now, in the regular way that the 80% or 85% like to do, go to a phone booth or Lotto booth or Massey store, buy a top-up, and now use it as e-commerce payments. Now we get into that space. It's nothing new. America has been doing it, first world country has been doing it with prepaid gift cards. You can walk in a Walmart and pick up a gift card any day of the week. So you convert cash to our online space in that instance. So what we did was build on it, but use it in a space and in a way that we are accustomed doing it, which is with phone card top-up. So the same online payment methods that you would expect from a credit card, you can now have the cash-based society doing it. So now there's inclusion for everyone, not only the credit card or the bank or the ones that has the facility or access to the facility. Anyone who has access to cash can now play in this online space. So that was the first step in our mind to move digital payments forward. How do we get a society that's centered around cash payments to move to online space? And by providing a mechanism in which they're comfortable with. I mean, we still have some educating to do. We still haven't actually fully launched that front-facing product to the public yet. But that's how we see we could transition them on to cash. We've been having a lot of businesses for that very cash in transit problem, using our system for moving cash from, let's say, Point 410 or Waiagari back to their bank accounts through that same network, because 1,500.
And Shernan, you said you wanted to talk some more about the economic development perspective on this and so on. From the point of view of the benefit to our economy and so on, what do we want to say about that?
Okay, basically, if you just take a look globally, approximately 2 million US dollars are being generated just in, let's say, 30 seconds. So if you look at, let's say, e-commerce. So if people are not connected to the internet, then they cannot take advantages of all these benefits that we're seeing out there. So that is why for internet society, the first thing that we should be focusing on is to get people connected to the internet. Globally, we have 7 billion people walking around on this globe, and from that number, a bit more than 3 billion are connected. So we still have almost like 4 billion that are not connected to the internet. So that's the first thing. And if you just take a look, for example, given that this topic is focusing on digital financial services, we need to move on from, let's say, what I would call, let's say, analog financial services to the digital financial services. So there is a path that should be followed. If you just take a look, for example, globally, we have 1 out of 5 persons that have access to banks, to the formal banks that we have there. This means from this number, 1 out of 5, still a lot of them are not even using their accounts. So we need to find ways how we can get people not only being connected to the internet, but also using their accounts. Internet society, for example, okay, I don't want to focus much on, let's see, on what, it's not an internet society talk, basically. But we believe it's very important that we have, for example, give people access. When they have access, then the rest will follow. I was mentioning, for example, if you look at the definition of the digital financial services, there are 3 areas that we need to look at. The first one is the users, for example, and here we talk about the consumers, businesses, governments, agencies, and so on. We have the providers, the banks, other licensed financial institutions, and also non-banks, and the governmental, let's say, policies. And here they draft, let's say, law and regulations. So if we would like to get, let's say, especially the Caribbean, getting connected and to use more digital financial services, we need to take a more holistic approach, not only focusing on the users. We need to also focusing on, let's say, the providers in this case, and especially more importantly, talking to governments, because they are the ones that are drafting, let's say, policies in a given country. If we look at the whole monetary system that we're using nowadays, nowadays is the first time after 500 years that this whole money system has been challenged. If you look at Bitcoin and other systems. And it's a bit scary for governments as well, because we used to have a centralized system at which, let's say, the monetary system was monitored, if I can use that word. But now we are moving more in a decentralized environment, and most players don't know exactly how to deal with this new environment. So again, from our perspective, we believe we should be focusing on development, raise awareness, what are the challenges out there, and how can we give our contribution in that regard.
Well, in that regard, let me ask Glynis. Glynis, InfoLink had done some work and have been lobbying with the various banks to provide more, I suppose, online payment facilities, digital financial services. What are some additional digital financial services with the existing environment and infrastructure in Trinidad that the banks can offer, the banks in the first instances, and probably entrepreneurs, much like Alwyn and his company can offer? From your perspective, what do you feel are some of the things, additional things that can be offered?
Well, there are things that are coming down the pipeline, because it's not that the market and industry is static. Let me just say this. I want to put a plug in for this because it's very important. Education about the responsibility of offering or participating in the digital financial services space is also extremely crucial. Where there's a will, there's a way, and the issue of fraud is topmost in the minds of the industry, because it is a $1 trillion global business. And as soon as you plug a hole where security is in financial services, another one pops up. It's about keeping up, because you can't keep ahead. It's about keeping up with the fraudsters. So another very, before I get to your question,
Sure.
another very important thing as we look to expand this space is about education all around, both on the consumer, retailers, entrepreneurs, the providers of services on the back end, to always keep that upmost in your mind in the delivery of the service. The security of the monies is very crucial, because once you have a hole, it compromises the integrity of the system. And that's what you don't want, because in order to grow this transaction business en masse, it must be, the integrity cannot be questioned or compromised.
But Glenn, sometimes you hear people saying that because of the security issue and so on, I'm unwilling to go that route. I prefer to stay with the more formal and traditional banking products and services.
And that's why I say education is important. That's why I say education is important, because a lot of the fraud that takes place within the traditional space is because people are not paying attention and a lack of awareness. A simple thing, and I see it today, I mean, because I'm a card person, whether it be credit or my Links card, a simple thing as keeping your PIN secret. A simple thing. You don't know how many people's PIN I read while I'm in the grocery line. You see, as simple as that. Right? As simple as that. Because as a business, I mean, say I'm always looking. I mean, I'm always looking to see why people are spending, pulling out $4,000 to buy groceries as opposed to swiping. That's another conversation. But as simple as that, right? You're now hearing a lot of ads about banks will never call you to ask about your PIN. I was talking to one of my banking colleagues. He said, it's amazing. It's not about the quality of education, how much educated, it's amazing how many people fall for that phishing. It's amazing how many people will get a call and give out their PINs on the phone because they think it's legit, or they're online and they see something pop up and it looks like their bank and they put their PIN and their account number in. It's amazing. And that's on the traditional legacy space. Far more when you go out into the non-traditional space, you need to have people very aware and savvy about the responsibility and the risk in dealing in the digital space, all right? And that's very important, because you don't want the integrity of the system to be compromised, because then that erodes any sort of branding and stuff you have done for the particular service. Now, to get back to your question in terms of what can be done, when you look at what's taking place in the global space in terms of the ease of transaction, and I was looking at some statistics yesterday, looking at what is happening in First World. Now, one of the, as Infolink and Links, one of the systems that we look at is the Canadian system, because their system is Interact, which is built similarly, which we have built similarly to. In the early days of Links, a lot of the consultants who worked on the designing the Link system and collaborating with banks, etc., were actually Canadians and had, in fact, done a lot of work with Interact. The things that they offer, P2P, person-to-person payment, we kind of have it, but it's not as real-time as we would like it to be, all right? Whereby we all go out to eat, we're sharing a meal, and instead of everybody ponying up cash, you just, by a click of your phone, etc., pay back persons. That's huge. That's a pent-up demand that I think of. Things that contactless, tap and go, huge. I mean, if we can put tap and go at our parking facilities, parking lots, every parking lot I go now that are run by NIPDEC, you're seeing no links or credit card, and nothing has irked me. And I have to be digging around in my bag, hoping I have a 20. And the next thing they always have, please have exact change. Right? Things like that. Those things drive the efficiency within a society, raise productivity level. And those are simple things, Those not hard to do, right? And without talking out of school, those things are coming. Probably not fast enough, but they are coming. And then on the business to business side, you have things that we have already, things that the ACH, which allows business to interact with not only other businesses, but consumers and employees. Things like payroll, right? Instead of sending this file to the bank and the bank have to pull it apart, you have things like ACH, which allows credit and debits on both sides of the house to move monies faster. So instead of waiting for a check to clear for 7 days or 4 days, or in some cases now RBC no days because they don't want your check. And again, that's about moving, and I hope people are not at all put out by that, because that is actually moving and changing behavior of the society. Digitizing a bank, encouraging people to use the ATMs and other things as opposed to coming in the banks. And they get a licks for doing things that other people are going to do sooner rather than later down the pipeline, right? So those are some of the things that we already have in place. And if we know about it more and the persons who have it market it more or encourage to use it more, we will actually change the behavior of business and by extension society going down the line.
And positively affect productivity as a whole.
And for productivity, and also, I mean, this is the bugbear, encourage government to move faster in getting to that space. And I mean, Danny, I know you have long stories to tell about that, but hopefully that's a catalyst.
Okay. And it's a genuine catalyst and so on, and we'll stay away from that for the time being, because that's a whole can of worms in its own right. There are persistent complaints by MSMEs, micro, small, medium enterprises and so on, that it's difficult to be part of the formal banking sector because of the onerous requirements, anti-money laundering, counter-terrorist financing and so on. To the panel, does digital financial service present an opportunity for addressing these concerns? Anyone?
So Jack, I'll answer your question, but I want to jump on something that Dennis.
Go ahead.
So just going back like 2 seconds to address security, first of all. Again, trusting a new brand, trusting something new is very difficult. So what we did, and what I think any fintech in this space would have to do, is partner with existing legacy companies who have done that legwork. Can't call names, but we're working with a couple banks to utilize your network, but through the bank. What we would take care of would be the onboarding of the customer, making that easy. So we still will sit within the regulations of what the bank requires for onboarding a customer, but it would be a lot faster because of the technology that we would be implementing. How we get these transactions so fast, I'm not going to go into it. There's a section this afternoon on blockchain that I think would address the speed in transactions on the network. So I'll probably leave that for then. But we will take care of that front-facing part and let the legacy banks take care of the back end of getting information to the account, transferring or getting it from your card. So to your point, Jag, and that's on the topic you were talking about in terms of how we could work together, how new companies could come in this space to make it move faster. So try to do it on your own, use existing companies that has that security backend already built in, and try to plug some of the vulnerable holes you have, like skimming parts, so we move away from cards, but have the same backend infrastructure. In terms of how I see the country moving forward, or the challenges for people using this type of service and the education things out there, we found the best way to meet this challenge is to partner with places and things that people are accustomed with. So a week ago, I'm not too sure if any of you all saw, Marcy had this ad out.
I saw, I was really impressed. I'm dying to try it.
Right, yeah, it's super cool. So one of the things is, so we built this application for Marcy. But if we go there and say, you know what, all your Marcy cards, you now sit on this blockchain that you could do fancy things with it, nobody have an idea what I'm saying. Maybe about 2 people, right? And we found, you know what, let's do things to help people in their daily lives without even mentioning that technology. I guess that's why I'm on the panel later on. So we don't even talk about it. We just put something out there that you like. So the lines in Masio is a huge problem. You could go to the store right after you finish, right next door and try it out. You could download this app, tap on 4 items and walk out. Well, this is spending that you have your credit card tied to it or you have money in your WePay account. But the thing is, you don't have to line up. And this have nothing, we have not tried to sell this as a e-wallet or digital payment or anything like this. It's just convenience. If you don't like the long lines, you could have this Masi app on your phone. You tap on 4 items, so going home for dinner this afternoon, steak, eggs, I'm missing something, and some carbs. And you walk out the store. That's it. So how we see integrating these new online payments and getting people accustomed to it is by giving them something that helps them in their daily lives. We partner with MP and UDPET. Well, UDPET. I mentioned MP. So you can now go up to the gas station, and just like you say, you don't need any change. The money that you have on there from before when you're in the Massey store, you can just tap on the little tablet out on the forecourt, and you make your payment right there. So it makes it easier for someone like me who hate to see that long line. I could just use my phone and tap on a tablet right there, the UDPET gas station and the MP right on Rising Road. You just tap on it, and you make the payment. Right? That comes from my credit card, or it came from cash that I loaded on earlier. So I don't have to deal with that process in there.
Okay, good.
And all that takes place in the back end
sure.
on ACH.
And we got to throw it out to the wider audience, because of course we have limited time. To the extent that, how many of you all use mobile banking services? Show by raising hands. Excellent. So it's actually pleasing to know that more than 50% of the audience is. Let me throw it out to the group here. Any questions that you all have that you want to ask the panelists? Just if it's a specific panelist, just identify who you want to answer the question, or if it's all, just mention all persons. So it's an open forum now. And yes, there are mics floating around for you to ask the questions. There's one on this side, and there's one on that end of the room.
Good morning.
And feel free to introduce yourself as well.
Okay, sure. Good morning, Chanel Padmore, Caribbean Resourcing Solutions. Shernan mentioned earlier, he was quoting some international statistics on connectivity to the internet, right? Saying the numbers need to go up. Is there anyone in this room who knows statistics for Trinidad and Tobago in terms of our current connectivity?
Yep.
Is no one from TAT here? No? Well, I'm not from TAT, formally. Thanks, Rishi. Trinidad and Tobago is the only country in the Caribbean whose regulatory framework includes the ISPs as a matter of course. That's why TAT has their quarterly market report, which they publish, and it says penetration by household and penetration by people, by individual. They do it every quarter. December isn't up, but September is. So as of September, broadband penetration above 1 meg in Trinidad and Tobago was, I believe, 58%, and it's down from 64% by household. It's at 58 or 59%, down from 61, 62% a year before. That's because of, I presume, because of recession and people cutting back. Their mobile internet penetration is, I can't remember off the top of my head, but you go to tat.org.tt, go to statistics, and you'll see under the quarterly market update for September, among the slides, go through the slides, very interesting, it lets you know everything that's going on in the market. It's on TAT's website, but Trinidad and Tobago's penetration is, from the regulator, as reported to the ITU and World Economic Forum, 68%, 58% households, 17 or 18% individual, just for 58 divided by 4. And the mobile penetration is also, it's pretty high. It's like 30, it's nearly 40 to 50%. We're not doing that bad.
Chrissy, you must have a question. You must have a question.
Great show, guys.
Okay. Well,
another question. There's another question there.
Well, okay. We'll take a question from
and
then we'll take the online question.
Good morning, everyone. Nigel Castamere from the Caribbean Telecommunications Union. In terms of the digital financial services, the question relates to how much government uses these services. I mean, I've been hearing for years about legislative barriers to the government doing certain things in the online world as far as financial services are concerned, and to what extent are you as practitioners seeing progress with the Ministry of Finance in terms of government transactions, and would that be a desirable impetus to the whole uptake and progress of electronic commerce in Trinidad and Tobago?
Danny, you want to take that one?
I want to take it, but then I'll take the next half an hour to lament where we are. Our government, let me precede my statements by saying this. Even if the perfect legislation isn't in place, you can still do things. So it's easy for government and government agencies to say, well, you can't do this because the legislation isn't in place. I disagree with that. There's enough legislation in place that will allow you to do, even if it's the basic things. But I have actually been involved in various committees and so on, and had presentations by the Ministry of Finance as to what they intend to do with regards to, let's say, accepting online payments for services. And anytime there's a presentation and so on, I leave they're disheartened. If I look at the early 2000s, from 2000 to probably the end of that decade, there was a tremendous amount of progress made in the country in terms of legislation and infrastructure. Have we actually leveraged on that to actually bring us any further forward? We seem to have plateaued out. I was on one end advocating, and in fact, let's say meeting with Treasury Department and various government agencies to actually discuss the mechanisms by which they can accept online payments. Yes, and this was way back in 2012. Have we made any progress since then? The answer is no. If there's a change in control of accounts at the Ministry of Finance, it is a step backwards, and you have to go through a lot of the different steps that you went through with the previous controller just to get you to the point where you can start making progress. Government does not seem inclined to actually want to do this as a matter of course. And I'm cynical at this point in time. I have gray hair, so I can afford to be cynical. The thing about it is the perspective they adopt is the wrong perspective. It's not a customer-oriented perspective. It's what I can do perspective. If you look at what the market is demanding, you will actually then look to change your approach to dealing with it. And can things happen, and can the, certainly TTIGF, TT for years have been talking about various models to adopt. I remember way back, Citibank told the government that if you're having challenges and so on, we can come and implement something for you literally overnight. There are solutions, but the powers that we have to make sure that they want to actually implement these solutions. Glynis talked about you going to some government agencies and so on. Well, she talked about the parking lots, but certainly government agencies and so on. They don't accept links, they don't accept credit card, they just want cash. That is slowly changing, but not changing fast enough. If we want to be a progressive country and we want to actually impact on productivity, we have to change these things. The direct answer to the question is, based on a last presentation from the Ministry, the Treasury Division and so on, it's open-ended. There's no target date within which to establish this and that and to enable online payment for services. And if you enable online payment for services, you're actually in a position to collect taxes faster as well. So everything is positive. There is a consultant who the government has had that is actually charged with coming up with a framework for electronic funds transfers. And it's a 9-month project and so on, at the end of which you'll get a framework. Well, wow. You're not getting anything implemented, you're getting a framework, and primarily looking at the B2B situation and so on, not looking at really business to individuals, business to persons type of situation. So are we making progress? Yes. Are we making significant progress? The answer is no. There are persons from within government who can actually throw another perspective on it. I am not happy where we are at. Other countries are actually accepting electronic payments and have no problems and so on. But yet we have stumbling blocks at every point in time, which are more mindset stumbling blocks than actually infrastructure or possibilities stumbling blocks. It can be done, and it can be done fairly easily and so on. It's just that the powers that we have to make up their mind that they want to do it. And I don't think at this point in time that they have done so. So that's my long-winded answer. I'm not a panelist, by the way.
Online.
Shernan wants to add to this.
Just one short comment based on what Kwesi said a while ago. Because he was mentioning, and this related to, let's say, development. You were mentioning, for example, that you consider, let's say, broadband 1 megabit per second. So that's, yes, but yes, but
that is absolutely ridiculous.
That is exactly what I wanted to say. We should not fool ourselves, because if you look basically at the definition of broadband, and there are basically 3 organizations out there. Each one of them have, let's say, their own definition with regard to broadband. But then we're talking about 2 megabit and beyond. So that's just a comment. Because I've seen, let's say, in other countries, I'm not referring to Trinidad now, I've seen in other countries where, for example, they are saying, okay, 256K, that's broadband. And we're just fooling ourselves, because with that speed, you cannot even access applications such as YouTube, etc. Yes, of course.
Briefly. Yeah, and Zach wants to make a comment on this.
I'm going to be very short. No policymaker in Trinidad and Tobago wants it to be 256K. It's 256K because of our legal framework. Our legal framework has a line which says a legal telecom service in Trinidad and Tobago will be at a minimum. So a legal telecom service will include at a minimum voice and broadband, right, and other things. If you set that broadband and that regulation to above 256K, you've made GSM illegal. And Digicel, I think, still uses GSM. So if you made GSM illegal, so until Digicel abandons GSM as B-Mobile has, B-Mobile has abandoned GSM. B-Mobile uses UMTS as their base technology. If you notice, everywhere you go, you see 3G. 3G can provide 2 megs. The second Digicel abandons GSM, then the regulator will be comfortable to, without prejudicing any operator, saying regulatory broadband is 2 meg because the minimum telecom service provided to the country provides voice, broadband of 2 megs, and the other things that are required. So it's only a matter of what the operators provide, and because if the government changes that before the lowest common denominator in the market, that guy will say, government, you've prejudiced my business and you owe me money. Okay, so it's just about timing.
Okay. Zaf, you wanted to add to this?
Yeah, I want to say that it's a mindset issue. There's no stumbling blocks anymore. We have no stumbling blocks to e-commerce in Trinidad and Tobago. We have every single mechanism in place. I mean, in terms of the mechanics of it, we have a payment gateway, we have payment gateways, we have First Atlantic Commerce, which is a little more expensive, and just to follow up, it was $1,800 at that time. We've brought it down to approximately maybe about $3,000 to an integration, which is well within any business expense in terms of setting up a website. So there are no more stumbling blocks. So we have the payment gateway, we have the platforms, we have WordPress, we have Magento. We have Magento, which is a top-tier platform that's expensive, but we have WordPress that anybody can download and it could be up and running. The plugin is available. You could be up and running. I just want to, there's no reason why we have local universal packaging systems that has a module for delivery that can integrate with Magento at this time. I don't know about WordPress, that we can, because we don't really have like UPS and FedEx integration yet with local platforms, with local online businesses, but we have everything that we need to to sell online. We have no problem. So I just want to, even though Alwyn's, and two as well, I mean, with 200,000 credit cards, we pay now available. People with our credit cards can go top up at any lotto booth in anywhere in Trinidad and the Caribbean and upload to the WePay account and pay with the WePay account as if you, like how you pay with PayPal. So you broaden, everyone is brought into the net right now. The only thing is that we don't have enough businesses, and I'm very surprised that 10,000 Alwyn, I can't name 50 online stores, and I'm in the trenches and in it. And if we have so many, I would love to see them, but they're not there. We have people spending $500 million to $1 billion a year online in US, and that, that brought about the online tax, and it's not good for the a growing economy. But there's nothing stopping us. We have a shortage, and all the Trini consumer knows how to shop online. They're just not shopping locally.
Locally, online. Here's an online question.
Yes, good day. I have two questions from remote participants. The first is for the panel, anyone who would take the question. What are your thoughts on mobile payments, things like Samsung Pay, Apple Pay, or Google Pay? You want to take the second one time, or you answer first?
Oh, yeah, I can.
Go ahead.
Same thing. I love it. We like the fact that we could use technology to help ease transactions, payments. 2 weeks ago, I was at the CES show in Las Vegas, and I saw Alipay, which is Alibaba's payment thing in China. And they launched Pay with a Smile, the show where you walk up to a kiosk, you smile, and they use biometrics to tie it to your wallet, right? So we came back home and we built one. We're going to launch it with Massey in one time. The thing is, we like technology. We're a technology company. And all these type of things that makes transaction frictionless is what our goal is. You see, the point of having to get something to prove that I am something, that's what we removed. And again, that conversation is later this afternoon, where you don't need to trust me as me. The network allows it to happen. This is what we're doing. So I could walk up to a kiosk and enter a PIN, use my face, and I'm guaranteed that the security is in place for me to make that payment, and not my twin or my cousin. So I love it. We love it. I think this is how we get average Joes onto using digital payments by creating these cool, wow factor type applications.
The other question?
The second question comes from Rethink Consultancy. Why can't the link system, I believe, not do internet transactions locally? And why should we be using other providers such as MasterCard and Visa? Sorry, that question is directed at Glynis.
I know that question. And Tracy and I are smiling because we have a long history of that. I'm trying to put this politically correct.
Correct.
Without having to look for a job tomorrow. The challenge is, Links is made up of 4 banks. We're owned by 4. And in order to do something like that, all 4 have to agree. Links can on its own, because of its ownership, go and do something like that, right? So that's the reason why. It has been asked for, and everybody asks this question, but in our strategic mission to our owners, that's not on the cards. And that's as best as I can put it.
Okay. Right, on this side.
Morning. Hello. Morning, Ian.
Hello.
I thank the panel for today. It was a very interesting discussion from what I heard. One piece of it that I was missing is regulation. So you can have all the technology in the world, but unless it's regulated and people are socialized to use it properly, it's kind of a moot point. And I think that's where we are with the existing technology. Something as simple as a lot of merchants abuse the link systems. For this, I flew in this morning, went to the airport to buy a bottle of water, and they refused to take my card for purchase less than $20. And that still happens.
And you see that unfortunately is a sign of the economy. And actually, it's gotten worse because we did part of, in order to know what's happening in the market, we do focus groups. And I only just recently did a focus group Monday, Tuesday. And the feedback was that it used to be $10. It's now gone up to $20 for links and $100 for credit card.
Yeah. So my question was, whose responsibility is it to actually regulate the use? Because to me, that seems like a deterrent. Why would I use my card when I could just walk around with cash? And the whole discussion was on trying to make us cashless.
Right. The responsibility for that, no, that's a merchant. The merchant relationship is with their bank, right? When those merchants get a point-of-sale machine for MasterCard, Visa, or links, they sign an agreement. And in that agreement, it says you're not supposed to do that. There's supposed to be no floor limits, which is what that is, and no surcharging, which is when they tell you if you want to use your credit card, pay extra, which is surcharging, right? That's illegal. And customers are supposed to, and we see it off of our Facebook page because we don't have a relationship with the merchant, but we have on our social media outlets have asked customers to let us know who people actually take pictures and send it. And we report it to the bank. Because what's supposed to happen is that after 3 complaints, you're supposed to be out. They're supposed to take that machine from you, and you're actually supposed to be on a blacklist. So you just can't go to another bank and get another machine. That's how it's supposed to work. All right? That really is about people giving feedback, because that's purely legal in terms of the contract relationship between the merchant and their bank. All right? Now, somebody asked about regulations.
Yeah.
The reality is you cannot wait for the regulations to do the thing. All across the world, actually, the regulations catch up. Right? That's just how it is. Because it takes a long time for regulations after it goes through. But when you see, I mean, our legislative process is a bit tardy. Other countries is a lot less tardy, but they have the same experience. Legislation do take long to go through, right? In terms of where the technology is. So you find globally it's been do and then ask for forgiveness after. That's how it's been. And that's just how it is, right? Once the technology or the persons who are implementing technology, what I've seen trend-wise, has in place proper relationship with their banks, because a lot of them work with their banks that takes care of all the KYC and the anti-money laundering stuff, as well as they have proper repudiation mechanisms. Because that's another big thing in terms of the whole e-commerce thing. In the whole food chain, at the end of the day, if something goes wrong, how is the end user, the customer, be able to walk back the experience and get their money back, right? And that's a big thing in the e-commerce world. That whole level of trust, Orwin talks about that. Trust that if something goes wrong in the transaction, I can get compensation. And that's something that our entrepreneurs and vendors, as they sell online, have to understand that. How many of us have, in fact, had an issue with Amazon, did what they had to do online, and got no money back on our credit cards? Nobody questioning you, asking you, making you feel like you're a thief, nothing like that, right? So part of that experience also has to translate into the e-commerce world, the whole value chain. And at the end of the day, the customer experience is a good one, right? And because it's now not a physical, I'm in your store and I want to return, but I want to return online. And that's a whole education issue and a cultural issue that we have, that's a challenge that we have to overcome if we want more of the e-commerce to take off. To your point, Zach, because you're asking why it is you're not seeing that many people are willing to buy online and not willing to buy locally, is that whole issue of trust. And if I extend that transaction all the way, if something goes wrong, how will I be fixed? You know, and that's a challenge.
We have a cultural Again, folks, it might be my cynicism I'm coming for here. We first of all seek not to trust, and then design our systems around that. Our regulators actually they don't work on the basis of customer service. My customer wants this, so therefore let me work assiduously to make sure that these regulations are in place. No, I will provide these regulations when I'm ready and at the appropriate time and so on. I'll take my time to do it and so on. As opposed to, look, I got to do this because there's a demand for it. There's a lot of cultural issues. I mean, I can go into at length about some of the things about there's a pavement and you see a lot of people walking in the road, even though there's a pavement right there. But there's a cultural mindset. So folks, just one last question because we got a break. Right here? Okay. Okay. Well, please stand up so we can see you, so you can call out. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Zinzi Morris-Allen. Glynis, you had brought up earlier Interac, and I was pretty interested in that. I actually used to live in Canada and used Interac quite a lot in personal banking. With regards to peer-to-peer mobile payment apps like Venmo and Peso and stuff, why is it that we're not seeing integration with these systems in Trinidad yet? Like, is this a legislation issue like you guys were talking about before?
Actually, it's coming. It's on the pipeline of the projects.
Okay.
Right? So it's coming. The reality is there's so much to do. You have to prioritize what to do. Right? In the industry now, for us, and I can speak freely, the issue is fraud and how you combat fraud. Right? Because we're getting hit. Right? People fly in to Trinidad to do fraud in our ATMs, right? Or, no, that's reality. You see it. They can track customs. If we have better integration with customs and immigration, we'll be able to see the fraudsters coming in. Because they come in, mine the information off the credit cards and stuff, and leave the locals with the link stuff and the pins and stuff to do things. So right now, top line is fraud. How we could reduce and mitigate the fraud that's taken place. The next set of projects that come in on the pipeline will be that, right? The peer-to-peer stuff. It's coming, right?
We have another online question.
Sorry.
And we'll take your question.
Yes, we have a question coming in from Richard Hamelsmith. He would like to hear about the new trend for Trinidad and Tobago businesses to be issuing reloadable gift cards. From the perspective of whether it can be misused for money laundering.
Well, it's simple. Central Bank actually have regulations around gift cards and prepaid gift cards. How they do it or how they should be doing it is capped. The amount of money you could load and how much you could reuse. So if you're familiar with AML, any type of AML for your banking or any type of cards that you may purchase or have from financial institutions, they cap it off to prevent certain types of transaction, anti-money laundering transactions. So in Trinidad, your gift cards should only be one redeemable at your location. So I can put money on my gift card from, I'm going to call her name, Company 1 and spend in Company 2. Those are only, the second you purchase a gift card, you actually give that company your money. It's just you drawing down on it at a later time. So for money transaction and money laundering, unless you're money laundering to the same company, you're not supposed to. And then you have a limit on how much you could load on, should load on a gift card. Okay. And that's by central bank. Sure.
As a user of the ACH facility, what I've encountered is that I may have employees who come and they want to split how their salaries as such may go. And one of the accounts they may decide they want to send it to is their credit cards. But as a user, I found that it does not allow me to transfer that money to their credit card account. Is this something that ACH is working on, or is this by a deliberate default that they've set this up not to go through?
That should, in fact, as far as I know, not happen. That's a conversation you probably should have with the bank, the receiving bank.
That's a bank issue.
Yeah, that's a bank issue. That's not the system issue.
Some banks tie your credit card to a bank account, So in that case, you would be able to ACH directly, like GMMB for one I know. They would tie their GMMB card to a regular bank account. So you could ACH directly into that and have access on your Visa card. But in other banks, your credit card is a separate account from your bank account.
Yeah,
so
that's a bank issue. Yeah, you need to talk to your bank about that.
Okay, one final question, because we are going to a short break after this, and then the other panel kicks in.
Good morning, everyone. Nigel Bellamy from Carragimos here.
Sorry?
Nigel Bellamy from Carragimos. So I just wanted to add, Zaf, onto what you said earlier. Education really is the key here. The ball has moved, the game has changed, and I think local entrepreneurs are not aware. You can literally use Aldwin's system for free. You can go home today. Weepy. You can go home today, and you can get that on your system for free. You could download WordPress for free, WooCommerce for free. You could go on YouTube and learn how to do this in half an hour, and you can do e-commerce tonight. And I don't think entrepreneurs get that. And we need to spread that message. I'm happy that Tracy invited me here to see this forum, and you all started that conversation at a very high level. But we need to spread this to every single entrepreneur in this country, that the time is now. You can do e-commerce. It's real now. It works. I use it on my site. A lot of my customers, my friends use it. I'm always harassing Alwyn. This system works, and this is a eureka moment for the country. So again, thank you for having the panel, and thank you for having me here. I just want to share that.
Folks, and on that note, I would like to say thank you as well for allowing us the opportunity to share information with regards to digital financial services with you all. There are lots of issues. I mean, there has to be greater communication to the public as to what is available currently. There has to be a greater lobbying by customers as to what they would like to actually do as far as digital financial services is concerned. But inherent in all of that, we talked about the issue of culture and so on. I'll take a dig against a corporate entity here, and no apologies for it because I was horrified. I went online to buy a Movie Town ticket. Yes, I got a ticket, had a barcode on it. Naively went up to the point where they were collecting tickets and so on. The person told me, no, you have to go to that counter, type in the number, and you will get a ticket. Absolutely ridiculous. But we are paying a premium for that. The problem is that the public isn't, let's say, reacting to that and insisting that a different mechanism is actually provided. We've got to lobby for what it is we feel, what we want, and it's no longer a situation where you travel and you use all these facilities and so on, and when you come back to Trinidad, you're dumbed down, and you feel that you can't do it in Trinidad. We can, we just have a voice, and we have to make that voice heard. At the same time, especially what Zaf was saying and so on, make available and make known to the entrepreneurs outside there what facilities are available so that there will be greater e-commerce. We have had broad discussions on the digital financial services and so on. There is going to be the open forum this evening, so if you have any additional questions, you can ask it at that point in time. But I'd like to thank the panel this morning. I mean, a wonderful discussion, lively discussion, and hopefully we'll be able to consolidate some of the thoughts here and make some representations to the respective stakeholders to make things happen differently. Thank you very much, all of the members of the panel, and thanks to the audience.
All right, thank you very much. And we are actually only 50 minutes behind, which is good. So let's have a break now until 11:30. We will actually take you 50 minutes from your lunch to get back on time. So take your break now. I know that's, you're not coming back by 11:30, but try and come back by 11:30. The panel will start at 11:30. Let's just put it that way, whether you're here or not. Break is in there to the outer door to the right. Okay, we're ready to restart. And can I ask for the panelists to join us on stage? Joining us on stage, we will have, all right, for panel session number 2, Gender Activism Online. May I invite Ms. Jacqueline Morris, Director, Trinidad and Tobago Multistakeholder Advisory Group, Ms. Attila Springer, gender activist. Jacqueline, you have to give me the name of the person who's, Jacqueline, the person who shifted. What's your name?
This is all of them.
Mr. Ian Royer and Mr. Rudolph Hanamji. Hanamji, is it correct? Hanamji. To join us on stage. And Suan Bharat, PhD. Okay, so we're ready to start for panel number 2, Gender Activism Online. And I will want to hand over you to, has the stream restarted? Can I get the stream back up, please?
I'm keeping my foot here, just in case they want to alive
stream. Thank you. So I'll hand over now to Ms. Jacqueline Morris, Director, Trinidad and Tobago Multistakeholder Advisory Group, who is the moderator of this panel, Gender Activism Online. Jacqueline?
Thank you, Tracy. Okay, first I'd like to introduce you to members of the panel. And we'll start at the far end with Dr. Barrett. Suan Barrett is a lecturer at the Institute for Gender and Development Studies at the University of the West Indies, St. Augustine campus. She's a graduate of the University of the West Indies, holding a BA in Media and Communication Studies with Political Science, an MA in Communication Studies, and a PhD in Interdisciplinary Gender Studies. Her research areas are interpersonal interaction, human communication conflict, social media use and its implications, gender and ethnic identities, beauty and body image, and carnival studies. She's dedicated to gender awareness and sensitivity training through face-to-face sessions and mass media outreach. Next to her, we have Mr. Rudolph Hanamji. And Rudolph provides guidance, support, and strategic insights in planning all marketing, advertising, and promotional activities of the Trinidad and Tobago International Financial Center Management Company Limited, both domestically and abroad. He is responsible for developing and maintaining marketing strategies, evaluating marketing conditions, and coordinating all corporate events. With over 10 years managerial experience in marketing and sales in key sectors, he holds a Bachelor of Science in Business Management from the UWI St. Augustine, certificates in Project Management, Business Protocol, Sales, and Technical Writing, and has completed a Master's in International Business and Innovation from the Arthur Lockjack Graduate School of Business. But why is he really here on this panel? He's also one of the youngest and the first online and digital advocates for marginalized groups when he worked for UN AIDS at the age of 16 as the PRO for Free Forum magazine, and later as a political activist when he was an executive member of the Congress of the People. Next, we have Attila Springer, a writer and gender activist. And Attila is a Trinidad-born writer, DJ, and flag woman. She has a long-standing interest in social justice movements and has organized and taken part in events around industrialization versus sustainability in Trinidad, England, Iceland, and India since 2005, using carnival and other indigenous festival arts as forms of protest or awareness building. She is also one of the conveners of Say Something, along with me, a Trinidad-based media advocacy and coalition group working on issues of gender-based discrimination and violence in Trinidad and Tobago. She writes on culture and memory and has presented papers and written commission work on traditional mass, resistance, and African spirituality in England, Brazil, Nigeria, and Haiti. She's the director of Adicata Group, a collective of women in a family creating cultural interventions for social change, especially among women and youth in Trinidad and Tobago. And finally, we have Ian Royer. You want the MS in there too?
No, it's fine.
Okay. Ian is a marketing professional, writer, advocate, and activist. His marketing career spans over 10 years, and he's worked with various brands in Trinidad and Tobago, including Fashion Week Trinidad and Tobago, Miss Trinidad and Tobago, Anya Ayongchi, Sasha Gates, the National Carnival Commission of Trinidad and Tobago, and more. He's also had a 13-year run working with various civil society arms of the United Nations, specifically in the area of HIV/AIDS and LGBT advocacy and youth development. And me, I'm Jacqueline Morris. I'm a lecturer at the University of Trinidad and Tobago. I teach in education technology. I've been involved in internet governance for about 15 years. Since 2002, 2003, I was a member of the Working Group on Internet Governance. In 2004, that basically created the definition of internet governance. And I've been working as a gender advocate since I was a child, because my mom was in it. So she just kind of dragged us along. So what we want to talk about today is activism online. We've seen in the past year a massive increase in online activism, especially around gender issues. And it culminated with Time magazine calling making the silence breakers, the women of the Me Too hashtag campaign, their person of the year. And what we've noticed is that I want to see what we have going on in the Caribbean. Is this just a foreign and international thing, or do we have that sort of thing here? And actually, I know we do. And Attila is one of the people who has worked on several campaigns. So I'd just like her to start telling us a bit about that.
Okay, thank you so much, Jacqueline, for inviting me to be part of this panel. For once, I don't feel like cockroach in foul party. I feel like I actually have some sort of authority to speak on something like this. I would say that my online activism started around 2005 with the Smelter campaign. And one of the things that we realized very early is that we needed to build solidarity outside of Trinidad and Tobago. And one of the ways that that happened quite accidentally was through the sharing of information. So we would go down to Vesini, La Brea, Chatham. We would spend lots of time in the communities there, but part of the spending of time in the communities there was to document their story, help them document their story, because at that time we still had dial-up technology. And these women in these communities were spending all their time and money on this dial-up technology, researching and finding similar stories in different parts of the world. And so it was only when a newspaper in Iceland took up the story of what was going on in Trinidad, and that was because of the activism that was going on, where the people in that community, helped by people like me who were in the media, people who understood the technology a little bit more and could say, okay, this is how to do this. But the technology was very new at that time. I mean, I had been blogging from 2001 or something like that. I had an online blog when, blogging was like a thing that nerds did. I didn't consider myself a nerd necessarily, but because I was living in different parts of the world, it was a way for people to track my movements and be able for me to share my stories with people. So I think at my heart, I'm really a storyteller. And I understood that we could use this online platform to tell these stories of this very small community in a place that I didn't have a physical, or, I couldn't picture it when I first read the story. I think I read an Express story. I was living in Zurich at the time, I remember coming to see you in Geneva when you came for the Internet Governance meeting. Yeah. And reading a story about what was going on in Chatham, but not getting the full story because, you know, people who work in the media, they pick out the piece that they want to tell based on the political and the political climate at the time, right? So for me, coming into online activism was very exploratory. We didn't really know what we were doing. And for most of the time, we didn't really know what we were doing. It was only as things proceeded. I went to a conference in Iceland, and I was like internet famous. You know, like lots of people were coming up and going, oh my God, we read all about what you all did there, and it was so great. And I've kept having that experience. Like I went to India for a farmers rally in this remote part of India in Orissa, and I had a similar experience because we had expressed solidarity with a movement that we had not physically seen, but that we had taken part in by signing petitions, by sharing information in our networks and that sort of thing. And so there was like this kind of global consciousness that used the technology to sort of fight back against the same forces that were fighting us, you know? And so another thing that happened when I was in Iceland is that when I met this filmmaker, he said to me, yeah, I met the guy from Alcoa, and you know, he had just come back, this guy who had been transferred from Trinidad to Iceland because things had gotten really hot for Alcoa in Trinidad because of the persistence of the protests that we kept to the point where the government actually changed their mind about building that smelter. So that was like a first kind of success that we had based on online activism and also physical activism that was going on in the community, making people aware of their rights, making people aware of the environmental side of things. There was lots of stuff going on like that. And this guy said to me, he said, yeah, you know, that guy had such a hard time in Trinidad. He was really stressed out by the time I was like, really? I didn't think that we gave him such a hard time. We were very polite. We went to meetings. We gave him a little fatigue and picong and thing, but he didn't really get it that bad, you know. But in terms of the kind of, and so I wonder if that campaign was being run now when we understand the technology a little bit more and it's a little bit more pervasive. I wonder how that campaign would have been fought now, if it would have been as effective, or if it would have been even more effective or even more immediate. Which brings me then to what happened in 2016 with the protests against Mayor Tim Key, which the idea for the physical protest started with a phone call between myself and Angelique Nixon, who is another lecturer and friend at university. And in fact, it really started with a status update on Facebook because somebody found the phone number for the mayor's office and posted it online, and people started sharing the phone number. And from there...
Before that, we had, what, 10,000 people in a day signed a petition?
Yeah, it was just like, in seconds, things were happening. And then somebody made an offhand comment like we had to go down there. And all of a sudden, we were going down there. And we organized this physical protest based on an online call for something to happen. And I think if that online call for something to happen didn't happen, we would not have had such a, what you call a closed loop. You know, right. There was just like, there was a thing, there was a response, there was a response, there was a reaction from the people who we were trying to get a reaction from. And that was really quite exciting to see how the technology worked for us in that sense. You saw that there was a counter-protest that happened, which used, I think, a very kind of old-school political language, which was to bring a few of your constituency members to come down and make noise and counter-protest. But it didn't really work because they weren't using the same channels and avenues that we were. And so we were able to reach a much bigger and more, perhaps more informed audience. And that really worked in our favor. So by the time there was an online response from from the people who were pro-Mayor Tim Key's perspective, it was too late. It was too late.
Ian, you wanted to say something about that?
Well, I just wanted to add to what Attila is saying is that, and I think this is why I'm here for the panel, is a lot of people don't understand the power of Trinidadians on social media. I think people don't understand that social media was built for a Trinidadian and Caribbean mind. Like, I've been fortunate enough to travel a lot, and I've seen how social media has worked. And when social media is too clean, it becomes corporate. And Trinidadians have a gift of making something resonate in your soul. Our meme game, if Common Bird could tax it, would save the recession, honestly.
Oh, yeah.
And what we need to realize is that in our penetration for social media, with just on Facebook, if we use that as a litmus test, it's 25% of the population accesses their news and stories just from Facebook. We're not even talking about Instagram and Twitter, which you can't track. But I think the gap that we have is translating the serious stories to the tools. We're very good at the peacock and we're very good at the madness, but we need to figure out how to funnel the actual activism with that same fervor and that same cleverness.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Rudy, can you share some of your experiences with your online activism?
Sure, Jacqueline. Good afternoon. Good morning.
It's still morning.
I'm running down the day. Thank you for having me, and thank you for Jason Jones for missing his flight, so that ironically I could be here with you guys today. You know, I'm listening to Attila, and I have to smirk at myself because my interaction with online activism began when I was still at Queen's Royal College, when I was about 15 or 16 years old, and the internet was now becoming something that people knew about in Trinidad and Tobago. And luckily for me, I came from a family that at that time could have afforded a computer, because even though I'm one of the people in the room who's below 35, I still remember when computers were, a rarity, and you had to find like $25,000 back then for a computer. And while I was at QRC, I started working on a project for the Model United Nations, which you all might know now as MUNA. And through that project, I met Hadi Touron, who was at the time the head of the UN here. And he asked me to join a project for young people to get involved with HIV/AIDS awareness. And I know Ian is familiar with my work as well. You went to the same school. So.
Yeah, no, I don't try to see what.
Well, I claim you, I claim you. But what that facilitated us to do in the project was actually use the resources of the UN at the time to access the internet. And the project, while it focused on the LGBTQI community and then associated communities, marginalized groups, it really was a message for anyone, any young person at that time. And I quickly became a poster child, if you will, for this movement. And it was similar to Attila's experience when I went to a UN meeting in Trinidad where all these regional representatives had come. It didn't dawn on me that the work that we were doing and my photographs and everything had traveled across the region and into North America. And people were like, oh, I saw you online. I'm like, whereas now everything is a selfie. Back then, that was not even Facebook did not exist. So that sort of, I don't know what you want to call it, totally unplanned and chance encounter with social activism actually stayed with me throughout my entire life. And it was some of those experiences that led me to exactly where I am today, because my specialization at UE was in e-marketing and e-commerce, because I saw the power of the internet since then. And I said, you know what, I want to be part of this. And then when I must have been, gosh, you'll have me doing math now. I would have been around 26 or so. I became a member of the Congress of the People. And at that time, the party was trying to mobilize disparate groups and deal with issues that were not mainstream issues in the politics of Trinidad and Tobago. Regardless of the fact that they've lost their way, that's a different story. But we had to use social media. I was a campaign manager for a young man in what was normally a PNM district in Cokerete, Powder Magazine. And Wazim lived there. But had it not been for social media and the ability to engage with the youth in those communities, because they're on their phones and on Facebook and MySpace and whatever existed at that time, we were actually able to convert that. Sometimes all we do is highlight an issue, but we don't really, all we do is ask people to care. So click like. But we don't actually give them the tools and the information, as Attila said, to connect the dots and to mobilize into a force for change. And I think, I remember when we saw also Black Lives Matter, many people don't even know that that name came from a tweet in 2013. A tweet, which some of us don't even use today in the Caribbean, but that transformed the globe. So I really have to, I am a proponent and I definitely strongly encourage NGOs, CBOs, apart from, of course, corporate Trinidad, to get on board, but not just have a Facebook page. Utilize it and integrate it across your platforms and your media, traditional media as well. Because the citizens, to tie in from the former panel and from my own experiences, unless we get the citizens to lobby for what we want, the change is not going to come. I actually see in the audience today Eddie DeVries, who was one of my first CEOs. And we worked together at a time to try and bring mobile wallet to Trinidad. This is almost a decade ago. And the powers that be just didn't understand the technology. They were afraid of it. And we didn't have the tools that we have now, like Facebook and other social media, to drive people to ask for that change. So that's where, I'd like to say, get involved, but use it well to mobilize people and to get them to lobby for change.
Thank you. And one of the things that both of you all have brought up is the fact that online alone doesn't cut it. We've got to make that circle. So what I wanted to know, though, is how does online activism fit into our traditional activism? Is there a framework that we have? And if Swan can give us a pointer on that.
Sure. Well, I feel like before I answer that question directly, I just wanted to situate this. I listened to the comments from our video feed, from our guest, featured speaker, from the last panel, and then, of course, your testimony of your experience as an online social activist, be it for gender or other issues, to state that this type of work allows people to have a voice and to influence. If no framework really exists, because you then adapt to the channels, you adapt your campaign, your movement, your information, whatever it is you're seeking to achieve. I think what is key is that in the interest of internet governance, you see facilitated access, freedom, rights, and relevance of different voices, different interests. I think that if you are attempting to achieve social change, as you rightly said, Rudolph, you then have to involve more than the public imagination. You have to then involve the public drive to move. And I think a good example is Life in Leggings in terms of gender, where a small campaign started based on a lived experience, yeah, you're hearing me?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes. So based on an experience that was had in Barbados, and people started to engage through talk, online, brought people together, closer together, all speak about going places, and the boundaries and barriers of the offline are blurred or lessened. They don't disappear, but they do become decreased. People are then able to enter into these movements and move with efforts to change. And you also have to building active, tangible outcomes. So will you sign a petition? Will you join us somewhere in the offline space? Will you represent yourself on social media, be it on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, wherever? Because then you get people to step outside of the Trinidad Canal. Just take the permission to wine case in point right now. I had to trade it Carnival soon. And the gentleman did come down for Carnival, right? Wink, wink. But you do get people to step out of that. I will comment, I will like, I will express a view, but I will then represent self and similar others. And from that, you do have movement. And I mean, we'll talk more later about the technical part of it, but that is what online social activism, online feminist activism is all about. Achieving a space in a place that was once very limited in its scope of views, be they race, gender, class, sexuality, age. And here is a space where you can then breach barriers, however you choose, in the most efficient way.
And just to add to that, we have to understand that creativity drives social media. And something that's very important that I think we need to recognize is the Caribbean mind and the Trinidadian mind and the creativity that we have is unparalleled. So, and to bring that home to you, before there was Me Too, there was life in leggings. That is a powerful thing to understand. And how we use the tools to gain traction is what's going to make the difference. But I think a component that we also miss that we need to look at as activists going forward is understanding the political systems that we're trying to influence. So for example, any activist in Trinidad and Tobago needs to understand that from January